It's an Eyewitness News special, Campaign 2017, the mayoral debate.
Good evening, I'm Tom Trung. Welcome to the final televised debate between the two candidates for mayor. We hope our questions and their answers over the next hour will help you make your decision before heading to the voting booth on Saturday. With us tonight are the two candidates for mayor, City Council member Latoya Cantrell and former Municipal Court Judge Desiree Charbonnet. The questions for tonight's debate were developed by Eyewitness News along with our partners for this program, the Committee for a Better New Orleans. We will also give the candidates a chance to ask each other a question, but we begin with opening statements from the candidates. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for that. The order was determined by a coin toss, and we'll begin with City Council member Latoya Cantrell. Ms. Cantrell.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having this debate. Latoya Cantrell, of course, serving on the New Orleans City Council since 2012, re-elected without opposition in 2014. I started my campaign on the ground with the people, and every step of the way I have been delivering results to improve the quality of life of all of our citizens here in New Orleans. I have the ability to listen, build consensus, and get things done. We deserve better, and together we can be better. And I'm running for mayor to ensure that all of our people are connected to real hope, protection, and opportunity so that we together can be a great city.
Ms. Charbonnet.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Desiree Charbonnet, and I'm born and raised in New Orleans, and I'm proud to say that. I have been serving this city for 20 years now as an elected official, 10 years as your recorder of mortgages, and then another 10 as a chief judge of municipal court. At the recorder of mortgages office, we endured Hurricane Katrina. We restored the books because we knew you needed access to those records quickly. I reopened my office within 6 weeks after the storm at the convention center. I was one of the first, if not the first, office to reopen in city. I also served as chief judge, as I said, at municipal court, where I've been nationally recognized for my leadership skills and the innovative programs I have produced with results to this city.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. We're going to get right to the questions. For the first round of questions, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. When it comes to various issues, you both have similar stances and approaches. We'll begin tonight by asking what you believe sets you apart from your opponent, which makes you qualified to lead the city of New Orleans. Ms. Charbonnet, we'll start with you, 90 seconds.
I think that answer is very clear. I am the only person running at this point in the field of 18 that has dealt with crime on a daily basis. Crime is the #1 issue that plagues this community, Tom. It doesn't matter where you go in this city where people do not discuss crime. I have sat on the bench for the last 10 years dealing with criminal misdemeanor matters. I have seen what causes crime. I know how we can avoid crime. I know how we deter people from crime. I'm the only person that's worked with NOPD every single day as a part of my job. I have watched the decline in morale from the time I took the bench 10 years ago to the moment I left the bench a couple of months ago to run for mayor. We've got to get serious about recruitment. I am the only candidate with a comprehensive crime plan as well to recruit and retain, redeploy officers where necessary. It is what distinguishes me. I consistently talk about crime. I consistently talk about how I want you, the citizens of New Orleans, to feel safe once again.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Ms. Cantrell, what sets you apart from your opponent that you believe qualifies you to lead the city of New Orleans?
Sure, well, definitely the only one with municipal government experience. While on the New Orleans City Council, being charged with creating laws and legislation and policies which sets the framework which the mayor has to operate in. I've had the opportunity to oversee 5 budget cycles, again, setting the budgets that the mayor has to confide with and operate within. I have been living every single quality of life issue over the past 5 years as a city council person, and of course as the executive director of the Broadmoor Improvement Association, where I led the community, rebuilt a community, which led the city of New Orleans through recovery in the post-Katrina environment. I have a proven track record, again, listening, building consensus, bringing our diverse communities and our people together, focused on improving the quality of life of people, delivering results, and that sets me apart because every single issue I have been leading on in the trenches, have the courage to stand up, even when it's unpopular. I've been there and I've gotten things done for all of our citizens here, and that's why I want to be your next mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Moving on to the second question, something that's fairly in the news right now, the Sewerage and Water Board. Last night, WWL-TV aired an hour-long investigation called Down the Drain that focused on the many problems at the Sewerage and Water Board. It examined how that troubled board is struggling because of mismanagement of money, billing, and staffing. Here's a brief clip from last night's special.
After tracking down the rest of the federal money, the part that went to the Sewerage and Water Board and not to the Corps of Engineers, we found a large portion of it still sitting in Washington, D.C. The feds gave New Orleans another $500 million after Katrina to spend on drainage, power, and pumps. A little over 1/3 has been spent, leaving about $300 million untouched.
One bill that I looked into was a bill for $7,000, right? A grandmother with, was taking care of her grandchildren and had a $7,000 water bill. Obviously, there's a problem.
First of all, there's a mass exodus of people leaving the water utility at this time. Limited talent to meet the need. It's a lack of competitive salaries. Overall human resource system that we work on, it's outdated, it's antiquated, we know that. It's not customer friendly.
Now, having seen that, if elected, what are 3 specific steps you would take to reform and improve the Sewerage and Water Board? Ms. Cantrell.
Sure. One, making sure that we have effective leadership in place. Both a chief operating officer, chief financial officer, program management, having those with the core competencies and skill sets to lead and manage and build morale and empower our employees within the Sewerage and Water Board. I've pushed and here recently as a council person towards increasing the increasing the wages for Sewerage and Water Board workers. We have 300 vacancies that need to be filled. In addition to that, ensuring that on the governance side, we have individuals on the Sewerage and Water Board, again, with the skill sets and core competencies to hold people accountable. We need built-in accountability. We need to ensure that there is not only effective leadership, but the ability to empower those who are in the trenches. When having effective leadership at the top, we can begin to spend down these dollars that are still waiting in DC, simply because Title 44 doesn't play. If a misappropriation of spending, it will be a de-obligation of services, basically of benefits. And that's something that we cannot stand to have happen, paying back the federal government for those dollars that we desperately need. Leadership is the top priority for me.
I counted 2. Do you have a 3rd step that you believe that could reform the Sewerage and Water Board?
Oh, the 3rd step is definitely filling those positions that are very necessary. We have to also have that we're moving forward to getting the top level of equipment, also being able to listen to those who are in the trenches and right now feel overlooked.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Ms. Charbonnet, what are 3 specific steps you would take if elected as mayor to improve and reform the Sewerage and Water Board?
So my management experience tells me that the first thing that needs to be done is a forensic audit needs to be conducted immediately when I take office. We absolutely have to figure out everything that's gone wrong, every dollar that's been spent, and how. The video showed some of the line items that was looked at and reviewed. However, that's clearly not a full audit. That has to be done. We've got to know where we're starting from. We've got to know what has happened. Second of all, I am going to make sure, and I will not waver and I will not bend on this, the Director of Sewerage and Water Board will be a licensed professional engineer. It must have, the position requires that, and it should have always required that. Now, that person has to understand the intricacies of running a Sewerage and Water Board, the drainage, water, sewage, etc. It's got to know that. That person has to have that ability. Then we're going to put together a management team like no other. This is really an opportunity for us to rebuild it from the ground up. It is a mess. What happened on August 5th is an abject failure of what should have been by now a routine process for us. We've been dealing with drainage and pumping water out of this city for too long for what happened on August 5th to have happened. So, and also, clearly, we do need to fill these jobs. These jobs are opportunities for people in this city. We talk about people being unemployed here. There are 300 jobs to be filled. Sewerage and Water Board needs to take on the task of training individuals so that they can fill those jobs.
Let me follow up here. Regarding the holistic approach to the Sewerage and Water Board, is it better, would you support a move to have it under the governance of City Council or keep it as a separate entity? Ms. Cantrell.
Well, based on the existing conditions right now, the time to act is now. You know that it would require a legislative change, and that session begins in 2018. So we're on fire, and we have to ensure that effective leadership and management is in place right now. So as mayor-elect, that's exactly what I pledge to do, working with the current mayor so that we make these hires, that when transition happens, we know that effective leadership is not only in place, but is sustainable. We do not have time to waste. However, I will work with the New Orleans City Council as it relates to changes if we see necessary, but based on the existing conditions right now, we have to get moving in regards to filling these positions. That's why I voted to ensure that the wages will increase for sewage and water board workers, which is holding us back from filling those vacancies. We need effective leadership in place. Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Program Manager, Superintendent. These are vacancies that we do not have time to waste. The future of our city depends upon it.
Ms. Charbonnet.
Your question is whether we remain a state
separate
board?
entity, or it should be
All right, so
under the governance of
whenever
the
I act
City
on behalf
Council.
of the people, I proceed with caution in every instance. And so when we talk about taking it away as from a state board, we've got to be very careful, because as a state board, the Sewerage and Water Board has bonding capacity. And we cannot lose that opportunity. This is a finance issue here. If it becomes a city agency, it no longer has the ability to issue bonds. So we remain where we are right now until we figure out what is going on. I would never make a rash decision, but it's hugely important. We have bonds out right now. People are holding bonds in New York City on Wall Street. We can't wiggle out of those. So when we talk about taking it away from being a state board, we need to be very careful about what we're talking about. We don't know that in the future we may need to issue more bonds on issues for the drainage and sewerage.
Okay, thank you both. Shifting to crime, Ms. Charbonnet, you've stated that as mayor, you would seek to add 80 to 100 officers each year. There's a shortage of applicants, not just here in New Orleans, but nationwide. What would be your plan to meet your own goal of 80 to 100 officers per year?
Aggressive recruitment. We have to aggressively recruit prospective employees for NOPD. And I know that I am aiming high at 180 to 100 a year, but I expect the citizens to look to me to have very high goals as their next mayor. We have opportunities in this city right now to go back and get some of the people that have left. Those officers who left and didn't really have to leave for retirement, but have gone to other police departments. They've left, they've made lateral moves, we can move them back. The mayor was just able to get a prospective raise for NOPD. That should help us as well. But I think when you have officers who've left, and they know that the atmosphere and the culture at NOPD has changed and that they are supported from the top, then they may be more encouraged to come back. You know, they want to be a part of this community. I have spoken to them. It's time to bring them back. I've also talked about looking at people who are recently retired or left the military as well. They have certain skills that would probably advance them. We've got to recruit. We've got to retain as well. We had a 2-year hiring freeze, almost 2 years, where we could not hire any officers. So while people were leaving, we were not replacing them. That is why we are where we are right now.
Let me follow up. You mentioned aggressive recruitment. I don't think anybody would argue against that, but what are some specific steps that you would take to aggressively recruit?
Specifically,
more
advertising, not only in New Orleans, but outside of New Orleans. The residency requirement has been since removed. I think that's important. You know, when we had a residency requirement, it really didn't allow us to cast a wide net. We were very limited, and we could not draw enough applicants. So one way would be to advertise and to seek out people outside of New Orleans. You know, we are a region. We need to start thinking regionally. We are stronger as a region. I don't believe that a person who lives on the other side of the 17th Street Canal is going to be less dedicated to the citizens of New Orleans as a police officer than if he lived in the city of New Orleans.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Ms. Cantrell, you have not specifically stated a number of officers you'd like to add to the NOPD. Do you believe we have enough officers? And if not, what is your plan to reach that number in your mind?
Sure. Well, the issue of needing more officers, I think, is very clear. Yes, we do. We have to grow in order to survive. But I understand right now that there are issues that we have where we can free up. So, for example, currently, our officers are spending over 250 hours, really a month, even with EMS, on wall time. When they respond to our residents who are suffering from mental illness, when they take them to UMC, they're being required to stay there. And it's time wasted where they can be boots on the ground. Once they offload, particularly placing our people with care, they should be able to move on. In addition to that, currently there is a 6-month waiting period for when you take the test. If you do not pass the test, you have to wait 6 months to retake. I believe shortening that time frame is something that we can do, and other municipalities do it. In addition to that, of course, making sure that testing materials are provided in every library, having sessions weekly, making it easy and accessible for people to get the skill sets that they need, and encouraging them in order to not only apply, but holding their hand even through the process. I also believe in terms of deployment practices that we can be more effective with deployment. Also, in regards to moving forward with having social workers riding with our police officers, again, assisting them in terms of when they respond. So there are various ways that we can improve, but also meet that goal that we need for hiring. There are things that we can do right now.
Let me ask you and follow up on that. It sounds like your plan would work with the existing officers that we have here. I don't think anybody would argue that the NOPD needs more officers. Do you have any specific steps that you would put in place to get more officers, new officers, into the force?
Well, one is setting the tone that we have a healthy environment. Currently, the morale is in the toilet. And so there is a real need to even listen to those men and women in blue in the trenches every single day that seem overlooked. So in terms of empowering people, you have to listen. You have to build consensus, and then you have to give them the tools that they need to do the job. But when we set the tone that we're a healthy organization, it really does attract those to the New Orleans Police Department, both near and far. And we want to be that force. We want to be that department. And I know that we can. We can do it.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Next question. What do you believe is a common misconception voters may have of you, and how do you convince people that misconception is untrue? Ms. Charbonnet.
Well, I have found out, to my surprise, that people have a conception that I come from some type of wealth, and it is furthest from the truth. I was raised in Gentilly by a father who went to the 7th grade. He was a carpenter. He raised 5 children on his hard work with his hands, and I learned hard work and responsibility from him. My mother went to the 11th grade, and they were just a great combination of people and partners in raising 5 children on a meager income. I grew up with no health insurance. I did not grow up with any advantage. What I grew up with was 2 parents who worked hard to raise 5 kids and taught us the value of education. They knew they did not have the education they wished they would have had, but they enforced that with me. They taught me the value of hard work, honesty, and having integrity, and being able to hold your head up high after knowing that you've worked for what you've earned. But certainly I come from a very meager background, and you know, I'm hoping that that explains to people that that misconception is wrong.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Ms. Cantrell, what do you believe is a common misconception voters may have of you, and how do you convince them that that misconception is untrue?
Sure. One, I would say that you have to be born in the city of New Orleans. I'm not a native New Orleanian. However, I've chosen to make New Orleans my home. Over 30 years now, I've been in the trenches. I have been meeting our people where they are and advocating in a tangible way to improve the quality of life of every single New Orleanian. So my track record is there. I have walked the talk. I'm raising a daughter who was born at Touro, who is a native New Orleanian. And so, you know, I'm here, I'm truly vested, and every step of the way, I've truly demonstrated my commitment to our people, both on every issue, whether it's housing, economic development, creating jobs, listening to our musicians and our cultural bears, making sure that they had smoke-free environments, in regards to ensuring that we're fighting for Medicaid expansion so that our people can be connected to the health care that they deserve. I have been there. Raising millions of dollars to rebuild homes, build new homes, created a library with my community, the only library and community center that exists, fighting for mental health services. So my actions really speak for themselves, and my commitment to this city is unwavering, and that's why I want to serve as mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Next question. What have you learned about yourself and your opponent throughout the election? Ms. Charbonnet.
I have learned about myself that I am stronger than I thought, and that I love this city even more than I thought when I first started. I have learned to listen even more. than I ever had. You know, being a judge, you really do have to listen. But when you start running for mayor, people are just pouring their hearts out to you about some of the most intimate details that they possibly can share. So I find that I found more strength in me than I knew. My opponent, I find she has a good memory because she's really good with her slogans and her cliches. You're going to hear it all night. She's going to give you the same empty promises. She's going to get skin in the game. She's going to have low-hanging fruit. Boots are going to be on the ground. I know that for sure about her.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Ms. Cantrell, what have you learned about yourself and your opponent during this election?
Well, one thing that I've learned, and really it's reinforced in me, the ability to just to stand in the midst of any criticism, definitely hearing and learning the acts of desperation from my opponent that have been pretty scary. But in the midst of it all, being able to stand and being strong and being that example for my daughter and for every child, you know, in the city of New Orleans, every young girl who sees history in the making, you know, with two African-American women and just women vying for the office of mayor. So it's made me really reinforce the history that is in the making, but also just the ability to stand in the face of any adversity or any challenges that come my way.
Thank you to both. For the second round of this debate, the candidates will ask each other questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. Ms. Cantrell, we'll start with you and your question to Ms. Charbonnet.
Sure. Well, what I will say to you is that I'm actually, you know, this is the last public debate. It's been a long road, been a series of attacks, definitely from that other side. And you know what? I'm just so happy to be here and be vying for the top position as mayor that I am not going to fall into the tricks of asking questions. We've seen over the past that it really hasn't done us any good, but more importantly, it hasn't done the people well. They don't want to see that. They want to see someone who has their back, who's willing to stand up and meet their everyday need, as I've demonstrated that I can do, and I want to ensure the people of the city of New Orleans that I'm focused on them, improving their daily quality of life.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. I believe you declined your opportunity to ask a question then. Ms. Charbonnet, would you like to ask a question of your opponent?
Yes. Ms. Cantrell, you consistently say you are the voice of affordable housing, but it seems that at every turn you side with the developers. Even today, your fellow council member, Stacey Head, sent out an email yesterday blasting you about yet again approving another short-term rental, which was opposed by the neighbors. It appears that the master plan does not matter. The City Planning Commission makes recommendations to maintain the master plan, yet you vote against their recommendation consistently. Continuing, you also passed the ordinance on short-term rentals where there is really no teeth to that law. How do you consider yourself a voice of affordable housing when your record does not speak to that?
So I consider myself a voice for affordable housing by doing the work. One, reconstituting the NIF fund, which is a millage for stabilizing neighborhoods and housing, finding that money and making sure that amendments were made so that it's used to provide gap financing options, soft seconds, down payment options, and stabilizing our communities. I'm standing firm in terms of affordability by getting development happening without any subsidy, but has also increased the number of units that are affordable. I'm standing on my record by building new construction, LEED certified homes where I've gotten police officers and teachers in the homes where they're living right now at an affordable rate. I've stood by my commitment of affordability, ensuring that one, we hold those accountable that have received subsidies but are not adhering to the laws that they're supposed to be compliant to. So, you know, it's easy, when you haven't done anything, it's easy to promise everything. I've been walking the talk and delivering for my citizens in New Orleans.
Okay, within this round, we'll have another opportunity, and we'll grant you, Ms. Cantrell, another opportunity to ask a question, if you like, of your opponent.
Oh, there's no question. I'm good. I know why I'm here. I'm staying focused on our people, and there's no answer that could get me off of that.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Ms. Charbonnet, would you like to follow up with a second question of your opponent?
Oh, another question?
Sure.
Have you accepted donations from those that support short-term housing and the short-term housing proponents? Those that support it?
A short-term rental
Short-term
registry,
rental, yes.
Short-term rental Sure, I have accepted donations just like you have as well. Thank you.
I don't have any donations
Thank
from
you.
short-term rental proponents.
Yeah, just all the strip clubs on Bourbon Street.
Okay. Moving on, in this third round of questions, we'll examine some broader issues, and the candidates will have 3 minutes each to answer. First question. Many New Orleanians are concerned about their ability to remain in their home and the makeup of their neighborhoods. Some point to gentrification. Others say they're being priced out on rent and property taxes. What are specific steps or plans you believe you can put in place to help keep housing affordable and keep New Orleanians in their homes? Ms. Charbonnet, we'll begin with you.
We're going to restrict short-term rentals, as they should have been done, as my opponents should have been doing from the beginning when they passed the ordinance. The ordinance is too broad. It does not have enough restrictions. The only restriction that matters right now is the 90 days. There are too many people complaining about individuals moving in and out of their neighborhoods weekend in and weekend out. Neighbors and families are complaining that they don't know who is living in the house next door to them. They have young children. They're trying to raise them. They worry about their safety. I have proposed that there should be one per block. I propose that it should be extremely restrictive in single-family dwelling zoned neighborhoods. It's important that we preserve our neighborhoods. The more short-term rentals take over our neighborhoods, we lose our character. This is not California. This is New Orleans. And we pride ourselves on the beauty of our neighborhoods and the flavor of our neighborhoods. Every neighborhood has a different character, and we're all proud of the different neighborhoods from which we come. So we've got to preserve that. We can no longer allow people from out of town to swoop up all of these properties, buy them, have no connection to the city of New Orleans whatsoever, and then just rent them week in and week out. It's not going to happen under my watch. I'm not going to have it.
Ms. Cantrell?
Sure. In regards to minimizing or creating some level of balance in neighborhoods, one, while I'm currently on the New Orleans City Council, I do commit to doing an overview and analysis, a one-year analysis with my colleagues to therefore look at amendments that can be made. An amendment that I put forth when we passed the short-term rental regulations was to limit it to homestead exemptions. And so that did not pass. However, I remain committed to that and seeing that forward. As mayor, I will be working with the New Orleans City Council as a body and working with them to provide amendments as necessary. But on the front end of that, making sure that the fees that I was able to get allocated to our housing fund are spent adequately and wisely, creating balance in neighborhoods that do feel like there are some levels of displacement. One, providing people also the opportunity to stay in their homes, educating them to not to sell, to allow for them to also build wealth while they're in their neighborhoods, because they are changing. In addition to that, surely making sure that enforcement is at the highest level of capacity that's necessary. We have currently about 5,000 permits for short-term rentals, and so clearly the housing plan calls for about 30,000 affordable units. So it's not just touching affordability. We really have to use our housing dollars more wisely to create balance, to help redevelop neighborhoods instead of pushing them to gentrification. But the homestead exemption, I do stand firmly with that, and hopefully the second time around, it will be passed by the council.
Let me follow up. Ms. Charbonnet, what do you tell the homeowner that is in his or her property right now and says, I'm getting crushed by my property taxes because of everything that's happening around them? What do you tell them right now to assure them that?
I tell them that your mayor is going to place in effect a property tax freeze for you for the next 5 years. It is not fair that, pardon me, little Miss Mary, who's been living on the same street in the 7th Ward or wherever she may be for 50 years, because someone else bought 2 or 3 properties next door to her, she can no longer afford to pay her property taxes. I have spoken to 2 and have to move from where she's been forever. I've spoken to at least 2 families who've told me we cannot afford to live in the house we love because we cannot afford the property taxes. So we're going to freeze her taxes if she's living next door to a short-term rental. Again, we're going to restrict them. We cannot have them taking over our neighborhoods. You're going to have to be a registered New Orleans resident and also a registered voter if you want to own short-term rentals under my watch.
Ms. Cantrell, you heard about the property tax freeze there. What would you tell the property owner who is now getting crushed by his or her property taxes?
Sure, well currently age 65 you can have your taxes frozen right now. But in addition to that, a greater flexibility with the revenues that we have would be able to provide some level of not only gap financing, but even building in an amnesty program to alleviate that pressure that they're feeling at the time, but also looking at other ways that we can minimize the costs of our people. The utility rates are extremely high. Of course, in terms of all those other amenities, the water bill is extremely high. Looking at ways that we can build in renewable energy and energy efficiency so that we can make it more palatable for people to stay in their homes and continue to build wealth, but also creating that transferable wealth that we desperately need in our city.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Earlier this week, the governor of Louisiana and the mayor of New Orleans announced what's being billed as the biggest jobs announcement in the city's history. DXC Technologies is pledging to bring 2,000 jobs to New Orleans and establish a physical presence in the CBD. DXC is a technology-based company. If elected, what industry or industries would you pursue to bring in more jobs, and what is your pitch to them? Ms. Cantrell.
Sure. Well, DXC is starting with the 2,000, but that could actually grow up to 4,000. I'm so excited because one of the representatives mentioned just the level of redevelopment within the CBD and warehouse district that I had definitely a hand in making it happen. So spurring that redevelopment is key. And so with that is one, creating an incentive and making sure that the incentive structure is clear, that is depoliticized, but that carrot is there so that one, we put skin in the game to therefore attract. That's exactly what happened with DXC. At the state level as well as the city level with the IDB, we can do more. But attracting one in terms of allowing our folks who have started startups here to scale up, so providing them access with gap financing options as well as capital. That's what they need. But also playing to our strengths in regards to, because we can lead on this, renewable energy platforms, digital media, advanced manufacturing, stormwater management, our medical, biotech technology, bioinnovation. So one, we have the tone set in the city and also the infrastructure in place. It's one, just being very clear about how we use and activate our incentives to therefore attract. It's what we did to gain DXC, and it's what we will need to continue to do to attract and to grow. We're going to do that for New Orleans East. I have my eyes set on it.
Now, part of the question was, what is your pitch to that specific industry, say the biotech industry or the renewable energy industry? What's your pitch to them?
Well, their pitch, our pitch is that one, we're primed for it in terms of medical with the number of disparities that we have, health disparities in our city. We are primed to have clinicals here. That's something that we can play to our strengths and also help our people at the same time. Destination medicine, it's here, we can do it. In regards to renewable energy, again, playing to our strengths. We are leading in this industry here in the city of New Orleans, and we can continue to do so. But those incentives you cannot overlook. They are critical to attracting industry, and how we use them will set that tone, and knowing that once they do invest, that the pilot or the incentive will not change in midstream. That happened with the South Market, and that's why I had to get right on in there to hold tight those incentives so that they can continue with their development. Make no mistake about it, it's very important.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Ms. Charbonnet, which industries would you try to pursue, and what's your pitch to them?
All right, so first of all, the pitch would be, we have a new face on City Hall, and we're operating in a different way. There is a new mayor in town. We are reducing crime significantly as we work toward that. We are rebuilding. We're having, I would call it an infrastructure renaissance, so that draws businesses as well. But I would focus on bringing more business as well to the port. Listen, there's not a CEO that in this world that I will not meet with if there's a chance, an implication that they would bring their business to New Orleans. Let's be clear on that. But as far as the port, the Panama Canal is in the process of widening right now. That is an opportunity for us to re-engage with Latin America. Our port we are the only port in the nation with 6 Class A railroads going through it. That's a great opportunity. You would not believe that because people wouldn't think we have that, but it's important. That's why the Public Belt Railroad is so important, because that's the road that connects all of the rails. Let's go to Latin America. Let's rebuild those relationships like we had years ago. I'll put my Spanish-speaking skills to use to meet with the presidents of those nations and the CEOs of the companies there and try to bring businesses here. I know for a fact I can get that done. That's a huge opportunity that no one's been talking about, but it's certainly something that I would go for.
Is there a specific industry? I know that you mentioned the port, and you broadened the net, but you would meet with any CEO, but are there specific industries that you believe day one that when you enter the chambers of the mayor's office that you could pursue?
If we're talking about going toward Latin America, I would be looking at fruit manufacturers for sure.
All right, thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Moving on, you'd find it very hard to find many residents happy about the state of roads and streets in the city. Through FEMA funding from Hurricane Katrina, about $2 billion will be spent to repair streets and infrastructure in the city, but it's estimated that an additional $7 billion will be needed to finish the repairs. Describe your strategy to improve the crumbling roads in the city and how to get the money for it. Ms. Charbonnet, we'll begin with you.
All right, so first of all, we're going to have a comprehensive look at all the streets so that we know exactly the status of them all. Right now, our streets get a grade F. They are in poor condition, and everyone knows that. But the money that's been allocated by FEMA has yet to be used, really significantly. We've yet to scratch the surface on the $2.4 billion. So it was estimated to be used, or estimated in the budget about $400 million per year. We've not done that. We don't have the ability right now to manage the large projects that we need to manage to get this work done. People want to see results. People are tired of seeing nothing happen for the money that they're paying. So the plan would be to have a strategic implementation plan, bringing in program managers. Program managers are highly skilled at executing big projects. They know and they have the relationships with the GoSEP money so that they can go get the reimbursements for the city without any hesitation. It's hugely important that we get it done. As I said, people are tired of paying and paying and paying and seeing nothing. So one of the first things that, besides crime, that I'm going to do is make sure that we start working on these streets. Now, I'm going to use my relationships in Congress. I have the support of Steve Scalise, I've got Cedric Richmond, I've got other congresspersons, and I'm going to bring that together to help us leverage what we've done. But we've got to use the money we have wisely first. We've got to prove that the money that the federal government has given us we've used wisely, and then can we go to the government and say, listen, we need more money to repair our streets. And listen, the president said that that was a priority for him, so hopefully with the support I have from both sides of the aisle, we can get it done.
All right. Ms. Cantrell, what's your plan to improve city roads and city streets, and how would you pay for it?
Sure, I would definitely put together an infrastructure and maintenance fund, and first utilizing the resources that we do have currently, but working with, and I love to build consensus to get things done. It's the only way. But I will be working with our local delegation in terms of the city council, of course our state delegation, the business community, hospitality, and of course the people. But we will go lockstep to our legislature to ensure that the city of New Orleans can retain a greater percentage of our tax dollars that are generated here, but for infrastructure and maintenance. Much like we created the Coastal Restoration Fund post-Katrina when I was a part of that Women of the Storm and advocating in Congress for those dollars. But what we did here within our state, we voted to create that Coastal Restoration Fund. So I want to show the state that the city of New Orleans is dedicated to creating this infrastructure and maintenance fund, so these dollars will not go just to the general fund, but it will be dedicated to infrastructure and maintenance. But in addition to that, we're going to submit a letter of intent to the EPA with the Water Investment Act that the current president has allocated $7 billion for infrastructure improvements. Currently, the administration did not submit for 2017, but it's definitely something that we can do in 2018. Public-private partnerships are essential, but it is essential for us to use the dollars that are generated here, redirecting them to streets, maintenance, and an infrastructure fund will be critical. The life of a street, as you know, once resurfaced, is about 2 years before you see some level of it buckling. So the need for not only resurfacing, but the maintenance is going to be critical. And this is something that I know that I will be able to get done.
So a big question about funding. Okay, thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Next question will be for you, Ms. Cantrell, as well. A lot of consumers and citizens going to City Hall complain about the lack of their ability to interact with City Hall and the problems and frustrations. What will you do to make City Hall more consumer friendly?
Sure. Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is truly build the morale and empower our workers there, our employees who have not received a raise in over 9 years. There's no professional development built into the budget at all. They're overlooked, although they're residents of the city of New Orleans. So I'm going to be laser focused on improving their work environment. That has to be critical, as well as implementing fully. We just completed a compensation study. It should be coming forth real soon in terms of recommendations, but I'm going to take that and fully implement those recommendations, which really speaks to right-sizing City Hall, but ensuring that the salaries are commensurate with the experience and the people who are doing the job every single day. This has to be a priority, and it will be for me. It's that work environment that our people are in. But in addition to that, we're going to change the culture of City Hall. One of no, the culture of no, can tell you every reason why you can't do something. We're going to turn that around, and we're going to roll up our sleeves and do everything we can with that spirit of yes to get things done. Meet our people where they are, and when we empower the people who work for city government, it really starts there.
Ms. Charbonnet, what will you do to make City Hall more consumer friendly?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because that is what I have been doing for the last 20 years, running public offices and giving the management that's required to motivate employees to do a good job. What City Hall misses right now is a sense of urgency. There is no feeling that we are at City Hall, they are trying to get the job done for you as expeditiously as they possibly can, and that has to change, but individuals need to be motivated. One commitment that I have made, and I intend to completely follow through with, is that there will be no employee working for City Hall who is making less than $15 an hour under my watch. That is unbelievable that they still have such low salaries. I have committed to raising the salary of any municipal city employee to $15 an hour, $1.10 per year, until 4 years pass, and then they'll all be at at a minimum $15 an hour. So it's about giving people a sense of pride, making people feel motivated about what they do, and rewarding them in terms of goodwill. Going into offices, the mayor sits on a throne, so to speak, and you see him when he comes in and out. Go into the offices, check on people. I've always done that. As a manager, as a recorder of mortgages, and a judge, I'll go in the offices and sit with people and say, how's it going today? How's it going? You know, what's your challenges today? How can we make your job easier? What do you need to do a better job? You've got to interact. You can't be on a high horse. You've got to get in there and get in the trenches. And I've always worked alongside my employees as an elected official for the last 20 years, and it works.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Let's move to some current affairs here. From potential candidates for political office to actors and movie producers, there's been a lot of attention thrown at sexual harassment and sexual assault. Mm-hmm. You both realize, obviously, that one of you will be elected the first female mayor of New Orleans. We'd like to talk to you about your experiences in coming through the professional ranks as a woman in what has been a fairly male-dominated field. Ms. Charbonnet, would you like to share your experiences and what it's been like to come up as a professional woman in what many would say is a male-dominated world? Yes, happily. I have never been the victim of sexual harassment as a woman coming up in the professional world. You know, it's a shame because so many women have, and we're hearing more and more about that lately, as you said, in current events. But what I have done as a leader and as an elected official in just starting from the Recorder of Mortgages office, I had a very sound sexual harassment policy. That policy protected the employees, whoever wanted to complain, that it would be safe to talk to me and that I would take action if necessary. I had a very specific instance of a very older man harassing a younger woman in my office at the Recorder of Mortgages. She felt very comfortable to come to me and talk to me about it. I looked into it, and he was terminated because it was proven that he was doing that. So my record is proven. I will not tolerate sexual harassment. I have yet to review the city's policy, but if it's lacking anything, I will make sure it's supplemented with everything that needs to be there because it is unacceptable, and people should not work on a job where they feel intimidated or harassed. Ms. Cantrell, what has your experience been like coming up as a professional woman in a realm, in a world that many would say is male-dominated?
One is setting the tone of being professional. One, you know, I have relationships, I mean, every single city department I work with day in and day out. And the employees really do seek me out to come, and they know that they can trust me. They know that I will listen to them. And at the end of the day, they know that I will respond, you know, with respect and with dignity, but with my focus on, you know, improving the issues that they're faced with. And so creating that culture of one of trust and eliminating fear. And so that is very important. And that's something that I've been able to do, and I will continue to do. We will not tolerate any levels of discrimination or harassment. And that tone has been set by me. But it's how I work and how I engage with people to let them know that, one, I care about them. And I will do everything within my power to ensure that they're protected, they're respected, and they're treated with dignity and fairness. And it really does start with me.
Let me follow up with a question here. Do you feel any additional pressure knowing that you possibly could be the first female mayor of New Orleans, Ms. Cantrell?
I do not feel any additional pressure because I've been receiving nothing but love. And the people of our city, they're ready for change. And they're ready for leadership that has that spirit of compassion to meet them where they are and truly provide that level of leadership. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Ms. Charbonnet, do you feel any additional pressure knowing that potentially you could be the first female mayor of New Orleans?
With regard to that particular issue?
Yes.
No, I do not. I do think that it should make some women feel a little more comfortable about coming to the, or making the complaint. You know, I can't just say women, though, because women are not the only people that are sexually harassed. As you referenced current events right now, there are men who are coming out talking about having been harassed as well. So no extra pressure, just making sure that they understand that their complaint will be heard and it will be dealt with, you know, swiftly and justly.
And continuing on, what do you believe is the significance if a woman is elected as the first mayor of New Orleans that will be a woman? Ms. Charbonnet.
Well, I think obviously, it brings a new face to City Hall, clearly. But I think it's inspiring for women all over, particularly the women in this town. You know, I always say when I'm speaking to groups of women that it's not about me winning, it's about us winning. So if I win, we all win. Our little girls win. They can see that they can be anything they want to be, and that is something that I stress. I stress that consistently wherever I am. When I see little girls, I say, you know, they say, "You're going to be our mayor?" And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And you can be the mayor one day too. So it's about inspiring women. Again, you know, that term of the glass ceiling, we finally break it, and we catch up with the rest of the world. But listen, it would be an honor. It would be significant. And nothing would make me happier than to be the first woman mayor of the city of New Orleans that I've grown up in, and love so dearly.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Ms. Cantrell, what do you believe is the significance of having the first female mayor of New Orleans?
Well, the significance is just, it's change. It's been 300 years. And it's time for that spirit, again, of empathy and compassion and the ability to meet people where they are, being able to touch them and really see that, you know, the quality of life either that needs to be enhanced, and that's something that I've been doing. And I'm just really looking forward to it because change is in the air and the people of this city are ready for it, and I'm ready for them.
Thank you both. You have both committed to implementing a comprehensive, inclusive community participation program as referenced in the master plan. Please describe your plan and timeline for implementing this critical piece of civic infrastructure. Ms. Charbonnet.
Tell me the question one more time.
You have both committed to implementing a comprehensive, inclusive community participation program as referenced in the master plan. Please describe your plan and timeline for implementing this critical piece of civic infrastructure.
Absolutely. So the first 6 months is a transition period right after the election. And that, at first when I realized we had a 6-month transition period, it sort of bothered me. And, but then after I've thought about it, with all the work we have to do, it's a nice amount of time to really put your plans in action. So to bring the community together, we've got several community organizations throughout this city, and everybody's working on something different. Even with workforce development, we're going to have summits and bring everyone together in different groups so that we can figure out where we're all going. That way, we are together, we're comprehensive, we're cohesive, and it's a holistic plan as we go forward, and we'll know what everyone's doing. Right now, what we don't want to have is duplication of efforts where it's not necessary. We want to have enough to offer everyone. So I believe that the citizens feel like they've not been listened to enough, and it's high time that they are.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Ms. Cantrell, describe your plan for implementing your community participation program and the timeline for this as well.
Sure. Well, one, I do want to keep the Office of Neighborhood Engagement, but I do want to improve it upon it in regards to tools and resources and strengthening the connectivity with neighborhood organizations and just with residents across the board. Making sure that we do have education opportunities, also as it relates to the 109 boards and commissions that we have that the mayor has appointing authority. So I'm going to be leaning very heavily on not only improving upon a community participation process, but as it relates to getting qualified, capable individuals serving on our boards and commissions with real character, with no biases, leaving the subjectivity behind, but only focusing on advancing the values of the city of New Orleans. Those who will be participating in boards and commissions on a routine basis in terms of setting that tone that we're there to advance the people's agenda. And so that's my focus, and it will be engaging our residents so that they not only are listened to, but they get the results that they want to see where they live.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. We're moving on to round 4 now for those keeping track. In this round of questions, we'll be dealing with yes or no responses. Yes or no responses. Ms. Cantrell, we'll start with you first. Would you be in favor of some kind of rent control for New Orleans?
Yes.
Ms. Charbonnet?
No.
Next question. Would you be in favor of a tax on sugary drinks to raise money for the general fund? Ms. Charbonnet?
I would consider that.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
Ms. Cantrell?
Yes, it's working in Philly.
Are you in favor of making the superintendent of New Orleans Police an elected position? Ms. Cantrell?
No.
Ms. Charbonnet?
No.
Are you in favor of privatizing the Sewerage and Water Board? Ms. Charbonnet?
No, absolutely not.
Ms. Cantrell?
No.
Are you in favor of eliminating red light cameras in the city of New Orleans? Ms. Cantrell?
Yes.
Ms. Charbonnet?
Yes.
Would you be in support of lowering parking meter rates? Ms. Charbonnet?
Yes.
Ms. Cantrell?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to move on to some ancillary questions that we have here. What do you believe is an aspect of New Orleans that is holding the city back, and what do you plan on doing to address it? Ms. Charbonnet?
I think one of the biggest things holding us back is that we don't appear to the world that we have a trained workforce that's ready and willing to work when we try to draw businesses here. You know, the Amazon opportunity is a great example. They are looking for not only a good quality of life, but workforce that's ready to go. And so that's why we have to have one of the best workforce training programs in America. And I am very sincere about that when I say that, because I've seen what happens when people have no vision for their future. I've seen it every day at municipal court. And it ties in with their education as well, making sure that we're giving every child, no matter to whom you are born, a great education and a great foundation. But being able to train people for the emerging industries so that we can attract businesses is huge, and we're going to have to work on that. It's a key part of my plan and my platform for the city. I know for a fact that a person who has a job is much less likely to commit a crime as well.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Ms. Cantrell, what do you believe is an aspect of New Orleans that is holding the city back, and what do you plan on doing to address it?
Sure, I think it's been the machine politics that has truly held our city back for generations. But change is coming, and people are ready for it. They're ready for the people to be the first in line, meaning not benefiting a few, but benefiting the many. And so I'm planning to liberate a lot of people come November 18th, because it's time for a new day and real change to where we're focusing on all of our people here in our city, ensuring that they reach their full potential and be connected to real growth and opportunity, eliminating the red tape and the stigma that it's hard to do business in the city of New Orleans because of our politics here. And so we're going to make sure that we eliminate that and we change that culture and have that spirit of one, that we are ready for the next phase of the future of the city of New Orleans.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. This next question will give us a little bit of color and maybe a little behind-the-scenes information on both of you here. Describe an embarrassing moment during this campaign season and how you may have learned from it. Ms. Cantrell.
An embarrassing moment under this campaign. Well, canvassing the neighborhood, falling in a little ditch. But I had a little resident there who helped me up and said, "Don't worry about it, baby, keep on going." And I kept on going.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Ms. Charbonnet, an embarrassing moment during this campaign season and how you may have learned from it.
I think probably one embarrassing moment, I'm not saying I haven't had more than one, but was forgetting someone's name that I absolutely have known for a very long time. It was after a very long day and exhaustive work, and for some reason I just could not get that person's name out of my brain at the time, and so I was pretty embarrassed about that. And what I've learned from that is, just I don't know, just, you got to keep pushing, you make your apologies and you go on. But that's probably the most embarrassing moment I've had. There's been others, but I won't share those.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Our debate is now drawing to a close, and each candidate will have 1 minute for their closing statement. We'll start with Ms. Cantrell. You have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Sure, thank you so much. I started this campaign visiting 12 areas of the city in 12 days, listening to the voices of our people. Listening to the issues that they're faced with and wanting to improve their daily quality of life. And I just want you to know that I want to be your next mayor, to ensure that our people truly, you have the hope and protection and opportunity that you need to reach your full potential in our great city, to where our cultural bearers feel connected to the growth and opportunity and not left behind, to our neighborhoods such as Algiers, Lower 9, and New Orleans East, that I see you and we will ensure that redevelopment occurs. I have walked that talk, I have listened, I've had the ability to build consensus and every step deliver results. I have walked that talk, and you can see my work, you can see it, touch it, and experience it. And I want to scale it up citywide so that everyone in our city can be better because of it. We deserve better, and together we can be better. And I want to be your mayor, and I ask you for your prayers, your support, and your vote on this Saturday, November the 18th. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Cantrell. Ms. Charbonnet, your closing statement.
Thank you. We have a minute?
Yes.
Okay, so I would first start off by saying if you want things to continue to go as they have, then you should vote for my opponent. All of these things that have gone wrong has happened under her watch. She has missed 1/3 of the utility meetings, the public works meetings for sewage that concern Sewage and Water Board. She should have been there asking the tough questions at the right time. Now, if you want a serious candidate, if you want someone that is strong, independent, controlled by no one, I am your candidate, City of New Orleans. I am born and raised here. I just gave up an 8-year term, unopposed at municipal court, to run for this job for mayor. The lifeblood of this city runs through my veins. I'm a child of New Orleans, and I want to see it. I want to see it prosper. I want to see it move to its greatest level ever. I want you to think about this when you're making this decision for mayor. Think clearly. Think about who is going to represent you here in the city of New Orleans. Think about who is going to represent you nationally. And think one step further, who is going to represent you on the world stage, which is right where we belong. I am humbly asking you for your vote. I am committed to you, and I love the city of New Orleans. Thank you for this opportunity, and good night.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet, and thanks to both the candidates. That brings us to the end of our program. Thanks to the candidates for joining us, and to our production crew for their work tonight. Thanks also to our partners at the Committee for a Better New Orleans. Remember, Election Day is Saturday, and the polls open at 7 a.m. We'll have full coverage Saturday night beginning at 8 p.m. Thanks for joining us, and good night.
Thank you.